Welcome to CrashMap Video Tutorial 3, Crash Cluster Queries. This tutorial explains how to get the most out of the powerful macro-level crash cluster query tool and how it can be used to identify and prioritize crash locations at intersections and road sections within local government and regional areas. The Crash Cluster tool is found on the Crashes Query slide-out side panel on the left side of the screen. Users have the option to search for either road sections or intersections within local government or regional areas, or along routes that meet user-defined crash criteria using the large selection of cluster filters that are available. Let's start with an example of a route cluster query. First, make sure that the cluster type is set to the road option. Then, enter an area where the cluster query is applied. In this example, we will use Perth. Then, select a route length. This can be any length from 0.2 kilometers or greater. In this example, we will use a 1 kilometer length. The minimum number of crashes is then selected. In this example, we will select a minimum of 2 crashes. The filters should then be used to select the crash filters for the cluster search. In this example, we will only look at the casualty crash severities using the severity filter and select the pedestrian option from the RUM code filter list. This road section cluster search example searches within the City of Perth boundary for all the road sections that are 1 kilometre or less, where there are at least 2 pedestrian casualty severity crashes. When the Run Query button is selected, CrashMap provides a prioritized list of the road sections that meet the cluster query search parameters. The results are displayed in descending order based on the crash count field. Users can then zoom and select the crash results of any of the locations listed to interrogate a selected location in more detail. It is important to understand that the crash results are filtered, meaning that only the crashes that meet the chosen filter parameters are displayed. In this example, only casualty severity pedestrian crashes are shown. To build a good understanding of the priority locations for a particular local government, the prioritized results can be copied into a spreadsheet for each cluster crash query. This assists local governments to build a road safety understanding of their networks, which will also assist with responding to ministerial, councillor and customer road safety inquiries. The cluster results can also be used with the intersection assessment and route risk assessment tools so that users can consider road user exposure for their cluster results. Let's now look at an example of an intersection cluster query. First, make sure that the cluster type is set to the intersection option. Then enter an area where the cluster query is applied. In this example, we will use canning. The minimum number of crashes is then selected. In this example, we will select a minimum of 2 crashes. The filters should then be used to select the crash parameters for the cluster search. In this example, we will only look at right turn through crashes using the crash nature filter. This intersection cluster search example searches within the City of Canning boundary for all the intersections where there are at least 2 crashes with a right turn through crash nature. When the Run Query button is selected, Crash Map provides a prioritized list of the intersections that meet the cluster query search parameters, where the results are displayed in a descending order based on the crash count field. Again, to build a good understanding of the priority locations for a particular local government, the prioritized results can be copied into a spreadsheet for each cluster crash query to build a road safety understanding of your network. This process can be repeated for multiple intersection and road section cluster query searches, enabling local governments to build a good understanding of the priority locations on their road network. The cluster tool can also be applied at a regional level to assist main road users. In this example, we are looking within the Kimberley region using a road section cluster search for road sections 50 kilometres or less where there were 2 or more crashes where vehicles have hit animals. This type of cluster query search can be useful for determining locations for new fencing or fencing repairs. Users can also use the cluster tool to identify locations along a route. In this example, we are looking at Albany Highway from 50 to 350 SLK using a road section cluster to identify 10-kilometre sections where 2 or more off-path, on-straight and off-path on curve run crashes have occurred. This is a useful cluster search when conducting route assessments to identify locations where you may want to widen shoulders or provide safety barriers to protect the occupants of errant vehicles from roadside hazards. Finally, users also have the option to save and load previous saved cluster queries. This concludes the Crash Cluster Query tutorial. Please refer to the Crash Map user guide if you require any further information about these features.